Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Just reading the comments section of our channel, and had somebody ask for a special request for us to make a video showing some of the knots we use. We've got in a lot of our other videos, we have various showing how to tie a Blake's hitch and that sort of thing. But I think it probably wouldn't hurt to show a couple of the knots that we use. And I'm also going to show you something new that I've been playing around with. It's new to me. I never really used it before. It's called a Bachmann knot. I'm going to show that, and also just a couple of ways that we tie in the carabiners and stuff. Just figure it might be useful for some of you guys. I'm not an instructor. I'm going to show you the way that I learned to tie some of these things. I'll leave it to you guys to do some of your own research. There may be more than one way to do certain things. I'm just going to teach you what I know. Scott's really the real expert, but he taught me everything I know, so I'm going to pass on what I've learned. So I guess the first thing we could start with is I made a video of this before. There was a lot of guys ask us, how do you, if you're with DRT climbing, how do you attach your rope to your carabiner? And there's a couple of different ways you can do it, but I think for me the easiest knot to tie that works really well, it's as I understand it in like the climbing industry and in the like rock climbers and that sort of thing, they use it all the time. It's called a Clove Hitch. It's very, very simple to tie. What you're going to do is you're going to take a piece of rope, and you're going to take your rope and you're going to put a loop in your rope, and then you're going to basically take another loop in the rope, two identical loops in the rope, just like that. And then you're going to take the second loop and you're going to put it behind the first, like that. And then what you want to do is you want to take your carabiner, put it through the two loops, and then pull it tight. And if you pull it from either way, it should hold tight. And that is a Clove Hitch. Okay. Usually when I tie it on the end of my rope, I'll always have a stopper knot on the end of it to back up any knot we have. So like here, this Clove Hitch is what's going to keep me on that carabiner. But I always want to have a stopper knot, something beyond it, so that if for any reason it started to loosen up and pull through, that stopper knot would back it up. So in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull out some of this slack and just try and work it up the rope so that I don't have as much of a tail on it. A little bit tighter, a little closer. So that's what I would normally leave on my carabiner, and it's a Clove Hitch is a good knot for that. But like right here, I have this short. Normally, if I was tying a Blake's hitch, I would have probably about a 5-foot tail on it, because I'd use that tail to tie my Blake's hitch. You know what? Let me show you that. I know we've shown this a lot of times. Maybe some of you that are seeing this have already know how to do it, but just in case there's anybody new, show you how we tie the Blake's hitch. So I'm going to do the same thing again real quick. So I'm going to take about a 5-foot piece of rope, and I'm going to tie in my Clove Hitch again, just like we just did a minute ago. 2 loops, second loop behind the first. Put your carabiner through it, pull it up tight. That's your Clove Hitch, and then I've got this about a 5-foot tail. I had a stopper knot here on the end here. I had a double overhand knot. I'm going to take that out. So I got about a 5-foot tail. Now your clove hitch would end up going down to your saddle. I'm not wearing my saddle now, but I'm just going to clip it on my belt loop to just like if it was on my saddle. And then if I want to tie a Blake's hitch, what you're going to want to do is you want to take, I just want to make sure that you can see this okay. You're going to want to take, it's very important when you tie your Blake's hitch that you know the distance from where you're tied into your saddle to where the Blake's hitch is. And a important aspect of where the Blake's hitch is in order to come down, you need to be able to get your hand on top of the Blake's hitch to pull down on the knot. When you pull down on the knot, that's what releases the knot and allow the rope to go through it, and then you can come back down. If you tie that Blake's hitch too high and you start to climb and you can't reach the Blake's hitch, you've got no way to come down. You'll be stuck there. So there's a fine line and a balance that you want to have between having the Blake's hitch as far away from you as you can so that your power stroke when you're climbing, every pull you get the most rope through it, and being able to reach the top of the Blake's hitch. All right, let me show you that. So for here, I basically am going to put my hand out to about here. That's about where I want my Blake's hitch to be. Now, let me show you here how to tie a Blake's hitch. To tie a Blake's hitch, you're going to take your rope, and we call this piece that's coming, that tail that's coming off of the carabiner, we call that the bridge. You want to take your bridge, go around the rope, and over your finger. Stick your finger out alongside of the rope, and you go around it once, twice, and then you want to go 2 more wraps above it. So a total of 4 wraps, 2 with your finger over your finger and 2 without your finger. Then you're going to pull it over the bridge and behind the main line, like this. Then you pull your finger out. The reason your finger was there was to hold that hole open so that you have a place to put this tail through. Right? So you pull it up tight like this, and you kind of dress the knot up, pull out your slack from it, and then what you do is, what I would normally do is I would pull it up tight and sit my weight into it, and then when you sit some weight into it, you'll feel that it will grab. And it's very important that when you do that when you sit into it, you check to see that you could reach the top of the knot. If you can't reach the top of the knot, you need to retie it a little bit shorter, because that's how you're going to get down. You need to get your hand on top of that knot to be able to descend. And that, let me just show you, that's how you descend. If you look closely here, when you descend, what you're going to do is you're going to basically put your fingers around the knot and just pull down on it. When you pull down on the knot, you'll start to descend. The rope will go over like that. Your weight will pull you down. As you're pulling on the knot, your weight will pull you around a limb like that. Okay, so that's how you descend. That's how you tie a Blake's hitch. And then what I like to do, I like to put on this line here, I like to tie in with a piece of paracord another Prusik. Okay, I put a Prusik knot in here. This particular Prusik knot is not carrying your weight. It's not holding you in the tree. It's nothing that for life support. All it's going to do, it's going to act as a tending knot. And if you tie this end that's left over through this Prusik, something like this, maybe like a double overhand knot here. Pull it tight like that, and then pull it up tight so that if you pull it up tight like this so that there's no slack in it, that will tend, that's going to go ahead and tend when you climb. When I climb, and however I do it, whether it be with a hip thrust or a foot loop or something like that, it'll tend my Blake's hitch and carry it up the tree for me. So that's how you tie a Blake's hitch. That's how you tie it into your tending knot. I'll go ahead and show you also what we use. Well, let me leave this here like this. And I'm going to also show you what, if you want to use a foot loop, when you're DRT climbing. What I like to do for that is, let me just grab I have a carabiner here. What I like to do is I like to take, a lot of guys will talk about, using Prusiks and everything, and we are real big fans of using double-eye factory Prusiks. You can buy them on Wesper. They make them in camouflage rope. And if they're double-eye factory Prusiks, they're, that's a good quality Prusik. I'm not a fan of tying Prusiks off like this. You can do it if you know how to do it properly, but I've heard some horror stories where guys really weren't sure about what they were doing, and they would tie their own Prusik. And I heard a story about one guy who was up like 20 feet, wasn't really sure how to do it, but he went and tried to do his own, tie off his own ends, and it came undone on him when he was 20 feet up. And he almost fell all the way to the ground. He didn't, thank God, but just want to avoid that. And I think you can avoid that if you use a factory Prusik, because you're not tying anything. They're sewn in eyes. They're really strong. And what's cool about a double eye factory Prusik is you can do more than one thing. I mean, you can tie with these. You could tie a regular traditional Prusik, like a traditional Prusik is tied like this, where you'll just kind of wrap it around through it. Something like that. One more time. That's 2. Usually you're going to go around it 3 times. So like right there, that's how you would traditionally tie a normal Prusik knot, like that, and then you would clip your carabiner in here. You pull down, that cinches down, and you can move it up and down. Now that works great. A lot of guys use that on their tether, and that's awesome. The downside to some Prusiks is they bite so hard on the rope. Sometimes they're hard to advance and move again. So what you could do, I like, if I'm going to if I want to use a Prusik, but I'm actually using it to climb, like when I use a foot loop, I tie it in what's called a French Prusik. And a French Prusik is real simple. It's basically you just start at the bottom of the rope, and you're going to wrap it around the rope. But you can only do this if you have a double eye Prusik like this, because if it's looped, there's other ways, other types of Prusiks you can do and kind of do a similar thing, but with this one, it makes it a little bit easier. So what you want to do for a French Prusik is you want to wrap it 7 times. Let's see, what do I have there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 times. And then you would clip your carabiner into it. Now what will happen with this is when you bite into it or pull down on it, you're going to see it's going to kind of have this kind of effect. It's going to pull down like that around the rope, and that's okay. It'll hold. It holds nice and tight. But the nice thing about a French Prusik is it's a little bit easier to advance. So when you come up from underneath and you push it up, it goes up nice and easy. Whereas some other Prusiks, or the traditional way of doing a Prusik, when you really sit your weight into it, it's kind of hard sometimes to break it loose. But I find that a French Prusik will break free a little bit easier. So if you're using it to climb, that's why, like when I use it on a foot loop, I'll use a French Prusik. It breaks nice and easy, and it works pretty well. So that's that with the Prusik factory double eye Prusik. All right, so next thing I can talk to you about is something I am just experimenting with a little bit. It's new to me. I've heard of it before, but I never really got into using it. And I went and met with a group of saddle hunters in Pennsylvania just last week. And there's a guy that I met there, this guy John. He's got a lot of experience doing DDRT climbing, and he was using what's called a Bachmann Knot. And a Bachmann Knot it's another friction type, almost like a Prusik knot, but what it does is it incorporates a carabiner into it, and it's a pretty cool knot. Let me show you. I just want to move this this clove hitch a little further down here on this. Okay. Alright, I want to put a stopper knot. I always like to have at least, you know, something like a double overhand knot on the end of it. Okay. So, Bachmann knot. This is a Bachmann knot. I'll start from scratch so you see how I did it. Once again, I'm kind of new to this, so you can do a little bit of research on how it's done. There's possibly more than one way to do it, but basically I'm taking, this is a longer Prusik that I have here. I would say that's probably close to 3 feet. And what I did was I basically took one end of it, clip it into the carabiner, and then what you're going to do is you're going to hold it along your rope, and you're going to wrap your Prusik around the rope and through the carabiner like that. Now I was experimenting with this and climbing like this a little bit before. I can get away with just that many wraps and it'll work. It will bite the rope, like I can pull it, it bites the rope, but it'll break free easy, where if you tend it, it'll just come up. But when you pull down on it, it grabs just with that many wraps. So for me, I actually climbed up like 20 feet using it that way. This is probably all I would do. But if you find that it slips, you can just give it another wrap. And you just have to experiment with how many wraps you actually need. Maybe if you're a bigger, heavier person or something, you might need an extra wrap. But the cool thing about this is that if you're using a tending Prusik like I do, you know, once again, if I had this clipped on here and I want to use my Bachmann knot, instead of using a Blake's hitch, you could use the Bachmann, and when you put your tending Prusik in, all you got to do to clip it in is that. There's no knot to tie. You could leave this all set up on your system already, and then all you have to do is take this other end and clip it to your carabiner. Now I want to show you something with that too. I'll show you a good way that you can tie your Prusik into your carabiner. Instead of just clipping it like that and leaving it loose, what I like to do, I like to take the end of your Prusik like this, fold it over like that, so that you have two loops like that. So watch. Fold it like that, and then fold them away from each other and together like that. So see? Okay, and then that opening that you have there, you clip your carabiner through that, and then when you pull it up tight, it'll look like that. So that's a nice solid hold on there. It's not going to flop loose or anything. So now you got your Bachmann knot up here. You set up your, I feel like that's a little bit too, let me just make sure that I'm getting all this. So I've got my tending Prusik here, clipped into the carabiner on the Bachmann knot, and then the other end of that Prusik connected there, and that's it. You use the Bachmann instead of using a Blake's hitch. And the benefit to this is you can get away without having to, if you go in, you don't have to tie a Blake's hitch. It's just a little bit easier. You could set this system up and leave it on the end of your rope, and you wouldn't have to tie a Blake's hitch. And it grabs well. The way I'm showing this here, I'm showing 3 full wraps around it. I actually found that I don't like it, me personally, with 3 wraps. I like it with 2 wraps around it. It holds for me, and it's easier to break loose in advance. So it's kind of a cool way to do it. Some guys like to utilize this. Here, you grab it. It's grabbing. It's not going to go. But then if I want to pull up on it, it takes it up, no problem.